August 18, 1989. Soacha, Colombia. Luis Carlos Galán is standing backstage at a campaign rally. 10,000 people are waiting in the square right in front of him. His security team pulls him aside. A tip's come in. Assassins are already in the crowd. They tell him to cancel. Leave now. Come back another time. Galán walks out onto the stage anyway. The crowd erupts. He was polling at 60% for the upcoming presidential election. His entire campaign ran on a single, non-negotiable promise: extradite the drug lords. Send them to America. Let them face real justice. One man in Colombia had been tracking that promise very closely. Minutes into the speech, a gunman steps forward from the crowd. He fires a submachine gun below Galán's bulletproof vest. Galán collapses on stage in front of 10,000 people. He dies within the hour. Pablo Escobar had just made the single worst decision of his life. In the 6 days that followed, the Colombian government extradited 9 cartel associates to the United States. The crackdown that came next would consume the entire country for 4 years. Escobar thought killing Galán would end the threat. It did the opposite. This is the story of how one of the most powerful criminals in history destroyed himself by winning. Chapter 1. The Rise. Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria was born in 1949 in Rio Negro, a small town outside Medellin. His family was poor. His mother was a schoolteacher. His father worked the land. By his early 20s, he was stealing cars and running petty street cons in Medellin. His first arrest came in 1974 for stolen vehicle possession. He bribed the arresting officers and walked free. That moment taught him something he never forgot. In Colombia, money moved faster than justice. Cocaine changed everything. By the late 1970s, American demand for the drug had exploded. Escobar saw a supply chain problem and built the solution. He wasn't just a trafficker. He constructed a logistics operation. Jungle labs, private airstrips, paid off customs officials at every point of export. By 1982, the Medellin Cartel was moving an estimated 70 to 80 tons of cocaine into the United States every single month. At its peak, that operation generated roughly $420 million per week. Escobar was earning more money than Colombia's government could track, tax, or stop. He built schools in Medellin slums. He put up housing for the poor. In his home neighborhood of La Paz, residents called him Don Pablo. But this wasn't generosity. It was infrastructure. Every family he helped became a set of eyes, a source, a layer of protection. The charity was a surveillance network wearing a human face. But there was one thing Escobar couldn't buy his way out of: extradition. Chapter 2. Plata o Plomo. Escobar's greatest weapon wasn't violence. It was math. A Colombian police officer in the late 1980s earned roughly $300 a month. Escobar's network paid $500 for a single piece of useful information: a raid location, a scheduled patrol route, a name on an arrest warrant. One phone call paid more than an officer's entire monthly salary. Now multiply that across hundreds of officers, judges, and government clerks. The cartel wasn't corrupting the system. It was purchasing it at scale. This is what Plata o Plomo actually meant in practice.
Misbegotten thought, if you will, was that, hey, by doing that, he would buy some time for himself, or he would scare off the authorities. In fact, quite the opposite happened. It just angered people that much more. They were going to get him one way or the other.
Take the bribe or take the bullet. Most people took the silver. The ones who didn't became statistics. Between 1980 and 1993, Over 600 police officers were killed in Medellin alone. At one point, Escobar placed a flat bounty of $3,000 on every police officer in the city. Killing a cop became a transaction. Teenagers in the slums lined up to collect. One 15-year-old Sicario, interviewed years later, said he would have died for Escobar without a second thought. He meant it. Here's the thing most people miss about the cartel's power. Escobar didn't need to control everyone.
He had a war tax on the other traffickers in Colombia. He charged 50% of their cocaine loads.
He only needed to make the cost of opposing him higher than the reward. For most of a decade, that calculation worked perfectly, until August 18th, 1989. And the 6 days that followed changed the math entirely.
Tonight on this program, we have set aside extra time to do just that, and we begin with Brian Ross's report on how drug lords are terrorizing Colombia.
Chapter 3. The War. The Colombian government's response to Galan's assassination was immediate. President Virgilio Barco activated emergency extradition powers within 24 hours. 9 cartel figures were on planes to the United States within 6 days. Escobar responded the only way he knew how. He escalated. What followed wasn't a crime wave. It was a systematic bombing campaign. December 6th, 1989, 7:30 in the morning, rush hour in Bogotá. A truck carrying 500 kilograms of dynamite detonated outside the DIAS headquarters, Colombia's National Intelligence Building. 63 people died. Over 600 were wounded. An entire city block collapsed. The director of DIAS, Miguel Maza Marquez, survived. He'd left the building minutes before the blast. Escobar had missed his primary target, again. 3 weeks earlier, on November 27th, Avianca Flight 203 departed Bogotá's El Dorado Airport. 5 minutes after takeoff, a bomb planted in the rear luggage hold detonated. The aircraft disintegrated at 13,000 feet. All 107 passengers and crew were killed, 3 Americans among them. The intended target, presidential candidate Cesar Gaviria, had changed his travel plans at the last minute. He wasn't on the plane. Escobar had now killed 170 civilians across 2 operations and eliminated none of his actual targets. But the bombings did something he hadn't calculated. They pulled the United States directly into the conflict. Those 3 dead American citizens triggered a deployment of the NSA Signals Intelligence Unit known as Centra Spike. Escobar had just given the most sophisticated surveillance apparatus on Earth a personal reason to find him. Chapter 4. La Catedral. By 1991, the pressure had become unsustainable. Centra Spike was triangulating his radio signals. The search block was closing in. Escobar did something no cartel boss had done before. He negotiated his own surrender. And the terms he extracted from the Colombian government were extraordinary. He'd served time in a prison of his own design, built to his specifications, on land he selected. No extradition to the United States. La Catedral was constructed on a hilltop outside Medellin, overlooking his hometown. It had a football pitch, a bar, a jacuzzi, and private guest quarters. The guards were handpicked and approved by Escobar himself. From inside La Catedral, he continued running the Medellin Cartel without interruption. Then in July 1992, the government got intelligence that Escobar had ordered the torture and murder of 2 cartel associates inside the prison itself. Officials moved to transfer him to a standard facility. He was gone before they arrived.
Escobar, a ruthless killer, escaped from his own luxury prison when authorities tried to transfer him to another jail. NBC's David Bloom is in Medellin.
Escobar had walked out through a blind spot in the perimeter his own people had built. The prison had been a stall, a tactical pause while he reorganized. Now he was back in the mountains, hunted but not finished. And for the first time, a new group had entered the war. They weren't the government, they weren't the police, and they had no interest in arresting Pablo Escobar. Chapter 5. The End. Los Pepes stood for People Persecuted by Pablo Escobar. They were a paramilitary organization funded by Escobar's rivals, and according to later investigations, operating with indirect knowledge of Colombian and American intelligence agencies. Their method was straightforward. They targeted everyone connected to Escobar: lawyers, family members, associates, anyone who provided him shelter, legal cover, or logistical support became a target. In the final months of 1993, Los Pepes dismantled the human infrastructure around Escobar faster than any government operation had managed in a decade. At the same time, Centra Spike had refined its triangulation technology to a precision of roughly 100 meters. Escobar's weakness was his family. He called them constantly: his wife, his son. Every call was a signal. Every signal was a location. On December 2nd, 1993, Centra Spike tracked a call to a residential neighborhood in Medellin called Los Olivos. The search block surrounded the block. Escobar's bodyguard was killed in the initial breach. Escobar ran to the roof. He was shot twice, once in the leg, once behind the right ear. He was 44 years old. That shot behind the ear has never been definitively explained. Colombian security forces called it combat fire. Others have suggested it was a deliberate execution.
The killing of Colombian drug lord Pablo Escobar is sending a tougher message. At least that is the hope of Colombian and U.S. officials. Mr. Escobar was gunned down yesterday.
The truth's never been established with certainty. But here's what is certain. The Medellin Cartel didn't collapse because Escobar died.
No one expects the death of Colombian drug lord Pablo Escobar to put much of a dent in the world cocaine trade. But as Diana Gonzalez reports, it does put an end to one of the bloodiest criminal careers in history.
It collapsed because Los Pepes destroyed his network. Centra Spike dismantled his communications. And a generation of informants finally calculated that the reward for betraying him outweighed the risk of protecting him. He wasn't outgunned. He was out-infrastructured. Conclusion. Pablo Escobar spent 15 years building a system designed to make him untouchable. Plata o Plomo. Charity as surveillance. A prison he designed himself. Every layer of that system worked, until the people inside it decided the math no longer added up. The Galen assassination was the moment that math began to shift. Escobar killed a man to stop an idea. The idea became law anyway. Colombia's 1991 constitution initially banned extradition. It was reinstated in 1997. Since then, Colombia has extradited over 2,000 individuals to face justice abroad. The country Escobar tried to bend to his will built the very thing he feared most into its legal foundation. That's not a footnote. That's the ending. If you want to see the next shadow organization we're exposing, click the video on the screen right now.